Hi Tristan, welcome to the Business Godparent and the famous red sofa. Would you like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself and Room 44?
Of course, thanks for having me. My name is Tristan Allen, I'm Managing Partner at Room 44 Limited. We're an innovation and product strategy agency based at Silverstone near Milton Keynes. We're exactly 5 years old, so the same age as Essendon, and we add value to our clients by helping them to get past the problem that many companies suffer from, and that is that they always want to create new products and services, but they get tied up in the day-to-day of their business, understandably. It's useful to have people like us around who come to the table with design thinking as our core methodology to help them stay disciplined in their approach to innovation, to ensure that the products that they make and sell stay relevant to their consumers as their market changes, as it is at the moment, very, very fast, and also that the products and services that are created are designed from the consumer's perspective to ensure that consumer unmet need is at the front and centre of decisions that are made during product creation.
What are the benefits in creating a strategy for innovation and product development?
It's an interesting time we live in. We just said right from the get-go that to know where you're going is part of a strategy. You need to know where the end point to your journey is in order to make some appropriate steps along the way. At the moment, change is happening so quickly that it's hard for C-suite to decide which products they want to invest in over all of the great ideas that are out there. And that's what we do. We help clients to approach product design with a process. It's a very creative process, it's not rigid. Every project we run is different for every client, but the core methodology runs in a certain way, and it starts with insight. In order to know what the market needs next, a company, a brand, very often needs to know a lot more than it thinks it already does. Taking information from a number of sources is very, very valuable. Even coming down to talking to the people in a business separately and then replaying that back as an aggregated view of the world is valuable to a CEO who probably doesn't get the chance to have those conversations, and the people that are talking to him are a bit guarded in their conversations if they're doing it directly. Right through to seeing information from adjacent markets. An example that I've talked about a number of times is electric vehicles are coming into the market by 2032 or 2040, pick your number, there'll be all new cars sold. Well, if you're making exhaust pipes and fuel tanks, your market's in decline. Similarly, if you see developments happening in other markets adjacent to that, you may choose to make some different decisions. For example, a driver of an electric vehicle doesn't visit a gas station. I, as an example, will probably never walk past a Mars bar again, or a sports drink, or a packet of crisps. When am I going to buy those products? What are those companies going to do to ensure their distribution model meets my need?
Can you give us an example of a product or service you've helped bring to the market and give us some insight to the type of journey that a customer may go on with you?
Yeah, of course. The process that we employ for all clients is called design thinking. It's otherwise known sometimes as human-centered design, and it approaches product and service design from the consumer perspective. So understanding what the consumer need is, what it's going to be, and then bringing that back to the table to use as part of a product development strategy. The process starts with insight and looking for pieces of information from the market the client works in, but also from markets adjacent to where they are, and even unobvious trends, emerging trends, technological trends, consumer behaviour trends. These are all very important factors. We go looking for information from disparate sources, but one of the places we also go is to talk to the client's personnel. It's very important to talk to people in the office and have conversations that very often the C-suite can't have openly enough. Then we ask the team, whoever they may be, to engage in the process of ideation, and that's always great fun. Lots of sugar, lots of post-it notes, but the weird and wonderful ideas that come out of those processes through some directed thinking, which we also bring to the table, is always going to be a great day, and the results will give the C-suite a problem later on, but that's not the point. The third part of the process is selection. Which of the great ideas is the one to invest in? And once we go through the process of ideation and coming up with a short list of options, Room 44 then applies its own proprietary selection process and helps the C-suite or the manager of the project to drop the products into a timeline or a line of difficulty. It's quite often the case that the products that are easiest to launch get done first because they're easy, but also things that appear to be a bit harder are only hard because that's not what the company does today. So by recognising that that thing has to happen at some point in the future, that could be the next step on the journey. So now we have a strategy, we have a timeline, we have a roadmap of actions, and it's all part of this process of design thinking that I described earlier. So an example of where the application of design thinking works really well would be to describe a project we worked with a client on recently. A particular client wanted to launch a new brand of food supplements, and the food supplements market is very, very densely populated, highly competitive, sophisticated and highly regulated. And we needed to make this particular brand stand out from the crowd. And the brand has unique formulations for some of its products, one of which is air pollution. Now, air pollution is currently very topical. It's in the media all the time as being a growing issue for health and environmental reasons. And that was so by matching up the formulation and the media activity, we were able to make the brand stand out from anything else going on in the world, actually, as far as we know, in that particular market. It's a unique proposition, and understanding the issue from the consumer perspective isn't to say, oh, I'm ill from air pollution, I need to get better. It's trying to help the consumer not get ill in the first place. So supporting the health of an individual through the use of appropriate supplementation it's a concept that's talked about frequently, but in specific regard to a problem like air pollution, this was one area where I think we may have scored a winner because it hasn't been done to the best of our knowledge.
What does Room 44 do to understand future supply and demand? For example, how do generations of the consumer affect things? There must be a lot of internal and external influences in bringing a product to the market.
It's a complex issue, and we have to make the assumption before we start into this that the company we're talking to wants to have a future view of their market. It's no good working on a product that's going to be in the market in the next 12 months. That's going to happen as well, but what we have to start by doing is looking way into the future. We have to try and record and make sense of the emerging trends that we see happening. We've talked about electric vehicles as an example coming to the market over the next 10-12 years. Whatever the date that market develops, it's not going to happen on December the 31st. It's going to happen over a period of time. So the market for electric vehicles today is growing. The market for internal combustion engines is diminishing. If we know that, we can begin to make decisions about what our product range should look like to anticipate those changes. It's similar for consumer behaviours. We know that people are living a lot longer. More recent generations are predicted to live to over 100 years and maybe 150 years old. They have lots of time to consume different products in very different ways than we are today. And all of these things have to be brought to the table. And once we've done that, once we've done some work in looking into the future landscape, we can come back to a business and say, these are the factors that we see as affecting the business today. This is where you are, looking back to the current condition. Now let's draw a line between the two points in time, and what do you want to do along the way? And most importantly, where do you want to end up? What's your future position going to be? That isn't to say nothing changes. The strategy that we put in place on that day may change in 6 months' time because new data becomes available. But we have to try and anticipate as best we can what the market will develop into. And we would encourage people that work in businesses to do three things with their time. 70% of their time needs to be spent on what they do day to day, where the invoices come from. That's business here and now. You need to do that to pay the bills. 20% of the time people have available to them could be spent on working on what they're going to be doing next. So what's next year's product going to be? What's the next thing? There's time and effort involved in the launch planning process that has to be attended to. Can't ignore it. But let's take 10% of the time available to somebody or to a team and invest that in mapping out what the future looks like. So half a day a week, for example, could be really hard to find until teams realise just how important it is. And that's where we come into our own, delivering value by adding a discipline to the future scanning piece of the innovation process is exactly what Room 44 does.
At what point should someone come to Room 44?
Before they realise they need to. Too often we get approached by clients who have started to see their revenues decline because the market has changed and left them behind. So we would say that's probably a little bit too late. It's not irretrievable, but it's certainly a bit later than it needed to have been. And as I said earlier, if you're spending 100% of your time on doing business and no time at all into future gazing, then you probably aren't going to be ready for what's going to be around the corner. We would suggest that people come to us and start working on a future strategy as soon as they possibly can. There's an old saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the next best time is now. So straight away would be ideal.
And do you have any tips for people who are considering bringing a new product or service to the market?
Yeah, I've got three, I think. The first one would be, don't think you're on your own. If you've got a staff or a limited resource, and innovation and product development just feels like a stretch too far for the available team, buy it in. Buy that help in. You're not alone. There's lots of people out here that can help you. We would obviously say Room 44 is experienced in giving you a different sort of support than maybe some other people, but certainly you can get the support and expertise you need for as long as you need it. Outsourcing is a current way of trading and we're all very used to it now. Secondly, I'd say take a forward view. Having a strategic point in the future and an idea of what the company is going to be, stand for, is important, and it makes short-term decisions very much easier. Knowing where you're going on holiday, for example, makes it easier to pack a case. It's going to be hot or cold. And lastly, I would say don't be afraid to change your mind. Having declared a strategic objective to your team shouldn't put the C-suite or CEOs or MDs off changing their mind as new data becomes available. And frankly, the markets that we're working in today are changing so quickly that we believe that most of the things we hear about coming in the future, 5 years out for example, are on the table in the market in 18 months. You have to respond quickly with your decision-making process, and you have to be brave enough to change your mind.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, Tristan, and taking time out of your day to tell us more about Room 44, and it's been great to hear it from you.
It's been my pleasure, thank you.